Thanks for listening to GYST.
You're listening to Get Your Shit Together with Adina and Diane, a digestible health and fitness show for women.
Real quick, the content of this podcast is intended for general information only and is not medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Chat with your healthcare provider before making changes, okay? Okay, cool.
I think they got it. Let's jump right into this week's episode.
We just sighing for this intro.
The collective sigh.
And then we'll do a collective scream as a group, everyone, because here in the US, it is election day. And I am sure I'm not alone in saying this. I cannot wait for it to be over. I can't wait to not have to block 10 to 12 numbers a day. I can't wait to not have to scream at people who approach my porch and ignore the don't knock sign, because that's been happening. And I don't like it.
It's so privileged of you to say, Diane.
I'm sure someone thought that when I went off on my story, because I've said this maybe on the podcast before, but of all the polarizing takes I've had, like shitting on doctors over the years, food takes, I don't really share political things, but I did meet Bobby Kennedy. People didn't say anything about that. But when I said, don't knock on my door, they were like, some people are trying to spread love. I'm not Jesus. All are not welcome here. Okay. Do not knock. Don't
also,
come.
like, that's the, do not come.
Don't come.
That's the craziest thing about the times we're living in right now. It's like, if you want to be upset about anything,
You can.
there's a whole community of people you've offended, you know?
Yeah. There are people ready to fight about anything and everything. And in month 8 of pregnancy, the rage, like people say, oh, I cried at this and cried at that. I'm just ready to like smack down at any given moment. And at the same time, I got a lot of DMs from moms of toddlers, of littles, and moms of reactive dogs who are like, do not knock. My dog and or my baby are not going to like it.
We have, there's our food delivery app here. It's amazing. But I have like in my notes, in my profile, it says like baby sleeping, do not ring bell, do not knock, like just leave at door. And many times it works. And then tonight I was texting Diane, we had like crisis after crisis, like my big kids would not fall asleep. And then our farmer texted Donnie that he was 10 minutes away when he didn't even tell us he was coming today with like all of our milk and eggs. And so Donnie's like trying to quiet the kids down for bedtime. I knew we had this recording. And he's like, I have to go get cash. Like we didn't have any cash. He had to like run out, get cash, be back for the farmer 10 minutes. So I go into the kids' room and I had ordered dinner. And all of a sudden I hear someone ringing the bell and knocking as loud as possible. Like it sounded like the police were here. No, it was the food delivery.
Oh.
And I could have cried.
But did you have some good food? What did you order yourself? A rotisserie chicky?
No, nini hachi. We got ourselves
Sushi again?
Sushi, some wontons.
I have a sushi gift card I can't wait to use. And it's not because I'm pregnant holding off. Y'all know that I've been having that. But at this point, I'm like, I mean, why don't we just order that and treat ourselves like after baby's born?
Yeah. Save it for when you just can't function.
Yes. Bring me the salmon. So yeah, lots has been happening since we last recorded. So I'm in the final weeks, the final stretch. Whoa.
Here we go.
And we'll start with the show and tell. LOL at me starting recording with this light sweater.
Sweaty.
Like that was gonna last. But
I know I'm warning you guys right now because usually I put my air conditioner on for these recordings and it felt kind of chilly up here when we started, so I didn't. But like I'm worried I might have to turn it on in the middle when I get heated about this topic.
Yes.
So either
and our hair is
on
down.
The video I'm going to be like drenched in sweat, or there's going to be an abrupt shift in the audio.
And both of us have our thick curls down. I brought the hot rollers out this morning and I'm really loving it. I saw that. It takes like 3 minutes to put in and then it's just like aggressively big when I first take it out. I used to do it when I worked in an office. But the show and tell, because we're moving this along. So since we last recorded, I had my baby shower. And
so cute.
It was so fun. If you haven't seen it, I'll have to put it in my feed. Neil did a pumpkin in labor. It was a carving of a
Loved
pumpkin
it.
mother in labor with a wig on. The wig was askew, like her hair was a mess. It was so funny. But the sweatshop was open. In record time, this is the show and tell. In record time, I finished baby's quilt using fabric that we brought back from Japan. So this is extra special, made with love.
So cute.
My mother-in-law helped me with like pinning. Like if someone saw us putting this together the days before the baby shower, we looked insane.
She was stress quilting.
No, I had like pieces like around my neck. We were like manic, like she was pressing. So here's the quilt. Oh, the lighting, not the best.
It's all right. We understand. Gorgeous, worth it.
And high contrast back for the backing for the back because I hear babies
Classic babies
like it, and it has schmutz and all that stuff. So I finished this. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be sweating just showing the girls this. So we finished this, and then my friend asked me how long it takes me to do a quilt, and I was like, well, the other one I finished in October. Oh my god, we just dropped something. The other one I finished in October, I started over a year ago. So it was like on and off. I would get bored, whatever, go on trips. And it's like GYST branding. So I have to show the girlies. Like,
love it.
with butterflies that are also kind of like on brand for me on the back. So that one took a year on and off. But the baby quilt and my sweatshop hours took me like a week and a half.
You just got to be motivated, you know?
I work well under pressure. I'm sure my minerals on my HTMA would disagree, but
yes. I mean,
I got it done.
Yeah. I get that. We all get that. There's work projects that have just been sitting around for 2 years, and some of them, like, I'm texting Veronica frantically in the middle of the night.
Like we need to get this program out. Yeah, sometimes you just labor, and I'm trying to wrap all this stuff up before I am in labor. But the baby shower was super nice. My sweet friend Krista hosted it for me. We had friends fly in from out of state because I also have family out of state. So my bestie flew in from Virginia, my parents, my brother, and the theme was fancy meat before tiny feet. Because I was like, I've been to a couple baby showers where we have cute sweets and cupcakes, which is fine. But, you know, on brand, like people are not leaving hungry. So people left with these charcuterie cups, or we were calling them charcuterie cups. And we had people like guess the baby and just caught up. And it was just super fun. Co-ed. There was alcohol. So a fun old time was had.
We love it.
Yes.
So sweet.
So what are your big updates since we last caught up? And what have you been getting to?
Dude, I don't even know.
Whew.
It's been a time around here. She's out of breath. I have to take over talking.
Not as bad as I thought.
Yeah, I remember. I feel like, who was I pregnant with? I guess it was. Hold on, Donnie. You are making so much freaking noise downstairs.
I heard that. Quiet on set.
Diane can hear you on the other end. Shush. He's opening sushi containers.
Oh, we have another. Cute.
Oh, Donnie.
Styrofoam. I hate that sound all the time.
Anyways,
He's starving.
Yeah, it's basically been chaos around here because every single, like, it's always tricky with the Jewish holiday season, but like every single one was in October this year. So
yeah, you had a lot, and you were hosting.
It was a lot. I hosted a lot. I felt so good to just like get my house back to baseline, get back into routine. It was so lovely and so fun. Ate some good food, but just like, I'm tired, you know?
You're going to lay down for like 3 business days, if not for...
I still haven't recovered. And also, we changed the clocks. I know you guys just changed them today, which is like, if you have kids, it is a unique exhaustion. Oh, yeah. Unique exhaustion. And like, we came off all the holidays. We were just getting back to our routine. And then we changed the clocks. And my kids have always been, I wouldn't say, like, Minnie was a late riser. They've always been moderate risers. Like, I was never one of those people complaining about how early my kids were waking up, except like the month before we changed the clocks. They decided to start getting up in the 5s.
Oh, ew.
So like, man,
I don't like that.
did not go very well. We still can't make it to 6. It's like been 2 weeks and we can't make it to 6 a.m. So we're thriving. We're thriving over here,
Yeah.
but it's good things like fun stuff with work. Brand new training block just dropped inside of the club, which, always lights me up. And it's a really fun one. So it was so fun to see all the athletes getting after their first workouts this week.
Yeah. Timely for this epi. I'm excited.
Yeah. And then that's pretty much it. Food wise, like we ate, holiday food, lots of bread. I made rugelach. Haven't done that in a while.
I've
So that
made
was
like
nice.
3 loaves. I don't know if last time we recorded if I had made my first sourdough loaf, but I've made a
Oh,
few.
did you not?
Perhaps not. I mean, October flew by, and I think, yeah, I did my
Right.
first loaf in October, but I called Adina a couple times. She's like, sourdough hotline.
She told me she had a question. I picked up like that. It was good.
Mhm.
It was really funny.
Yeah, I've been sharing crumb shots for the freaks on Instagram.
They love them.
Mhm.
Can't get enough.
And what I love about your approach so much is like, Diane, our ancestors weren't measuring and worrying about this 4:1 ratio or whatever. Like, I just followed Adina's instructions and it came out great. Like, I even had an overproof loaf, I think. I don't know. And it worked out.
Yeah.
It was delish.
People get nitty-gritty about their once someone's thrown out like percentages, I'm just like, I'm out.
Don't talk to me about math. Don't talk to me
No.
about math. I can do tip
I
math.
love the funny thing is that people who are really intimidated by the idea of starting sourdough, I think there's a few things like they just like don't really understand what it is. They're like, there's a living thing in my fridge now. What are you talking about? Like that stuff. But some people get really hung up on the scale thing. And they're like, I have to buy a scale and use a scale. But like once
Don't you
you
use
bake
those?
with a scale,
Yeah, I like that anyway.
you cannot go back.
Like when I make cookies or other things not sourdough, like I want to just pour it into a thing.
I know. And like not dirty up any measuring spoons, measuring cups, like knowing exactly that the recipe is going to work perfectly because it was grams like measured out. If I look up people always ask me how I pick the like sourdough recipes that I use. If I look one up and it's not
Like grams
in grams, I'm out. If someone says half a cup of something, I'm like straight to the gerb.
Like, are we packing that cup? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have been baking, but I haven't been cooking a lot because I'm at the point where I'm like, Neil, I need you. I'm making fingernails and things. And he's been so great about stepping it up and like, what do you want for breakfast? And just cooking chores. He's been amazing. And he made what he dubbed hamburger harissa helper. We had some leftover harissa, and he's like, what was really good as a kid? Like hamburger helper. So he dumped some of that in there and he made this like creamy but tomatoey sauce with some of our ground beef from the farm. And then when my bestie was here, she stayed with us. And as a thank you for us hosting her, she made us tomahawk, a big, thick steak with a handle with roasted delicata squash, harissa green
Meat with a
beans.
handle.
I love meat with a handle.
Love it.
And it was perfect. She actually did like a cold sear. She showed me a new technique on our stove. It was really delicious, had a nice crust, but we want thick steaks, thick. And that's really the food highlights. Oh, I also this morning made a shaken peanut butter latte that I had saved on TikTok ages ago, but I finally had an empty peanut butter jar. I'll link the video or instructions, but it's basically an empty peanut butter jar, brewed some espresso into it, added milk, and I think I put a little bit of vanilla, shook it up, and poured it over ice.
Nice.
That's it. It was good. I love it.
Do you feel like iced coffee season is coming to a close over there?
Oh, it definitely is, but it's, you know what? It was like 63. So last week we had a 77.
You had a weird
and then it went down to like 30, and it really messes with my head and my nose. But today it was 63 and I was sweating in a sweater. So I put ice in that coffee. But yeah, for the most part, it's over.
Nice. Nice.
On the media front, I actually have a lot to talk about. Kim.
Well, hurry up because we got a long episode and I got to go to bed.
I'll pick one or two. I watched Bottoms, which you recommended a while ago. It was hilarious. It was like
so silly.
Lesbian Superbad vibes. I don't know. It was so funny. Laugh Out Loud, and Babes with Alana Glazer. Has that been on your radar or your watch list to do list?
No, it hadn't. No.
Well, I think you would love it. So Kim, our friend, our pal Kim said that it was laugh out loud funny, and it also is very timely because Ilana gets pregnant and her bestie is maybe going to be like her doula or her support system, and it's like a great friendship movie, laugh out loud funny, good physical comedy. But also there were things like someone's in early labor with their second baby and they have like this full-on casual low-key order everything brunch, and I was like, this seems inaccurate from what I'm learning, but still fun.
Wait, questions. Has she had a baby in real life?
Yes, Ilana. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I was wondering if this was like a weird fixation because she also wrote and directed that
A
like
pregnancy
horror
kink?
movie. Yeah. What
Oh,
was
yeah,
that
she
called?
did.
It was like
I didn't watch it because I don't like horror.
Unplanned or something or something like that.
I know I haven't been in touch with Ilana for a while because her social media was annoying me for a bit. But
Oh yeah.
false positive, that sounds like a pregnancy.
Yes,
movie,
that's what it is.
which with
That's a horror movie.
Pierce Brosnan.
When I first heard about it, I was like, "Ooh, she wrote and directed this. It's gonna be funny." And then it was like,
Well, she did produce
straight
or
horror.
write Babes, and this was really funny. And it has another familiar comedian in it with luscious curly hair. It is funny. It's on Hulu, so recommend streaming it.
I'll watch it. I'll watch that.
And the Martha documentary. That's your homework. Please watch the
Okay.
Martha doc. She's so sassy and petty. I love it. So those are my
Yeah.
highlights.
That's fun. Love it. Ours is pretty boring. We watched the most recent season of Only Murders. Would not recommend. It wasn't a great season.
Yeah.
It was like, I'll tell you what the problem was. Hold on, my nose is really itchy. Ugh. Do I need to like get up and get a tissue or will this be enough?
Uh-oh.
We're okay. Yeah, it was like this season was just like aggressive guest stars. Like how many A-listers can we get into this show? And it kind of like took you out of it because like that and like the plot of the season wasn't great, but the three of them, like Martin Short, Steve Martin, and Selena Gomez, are just like so fun, and I feel like that dynamic was really fun to watch for a few seasons. And even though they're all like megastars, it didn't feel like, look at these three megastars on my screen, because like the world was so lived in, the New York of it all, like it was just fun. And then once they brought in all these other A-listers, it was kind of like,
you get a cameo
Yeah.
and you get a cameo and
yeah, it was just like, it didn't even feel like the characters anymore. It was like, why is Martin Short kissing Meryl Streep? Like, this is weird, you know? Like, so anyways, I don't know. I had to see it through, but wouldn't recommend the season. But we did start The English Teacher, and it's sitcom-y and just like a good short length, really silly. I think it's a lot of fun commentary on like some woke culture stuff.
I see Jordan Firstman's in it, who does
Yes, he's really
hilarious
funny.
videos.
Yeah, he's really funny in it too. And it's fun. I would give it a shot. I know nothing about it. Like it was like I was so not on planet Earth, and Donnie's like, I heard this show is funny, let's watch it. So I can't tell you much more about it besides for like if you've been looking for a short sitcom-y type with fun characters, it'll make you laugh. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Yeah, we like laughing. We also like the meat of this episode.
Who don't we? Hold me back.
Yeah. Adina's texted me in preparation for this episode and was like, I think I'm going to go off on, what was it? Some ACOG guy. I don't even know what ACOG is,
Yeah.
but you'll tell me and the girlies for like 20 minutes. But I was like, well, rein it in. I know we got a lot
Yeah.
of feels, but
I know.
And I know
I was like, Diane, I think this needs to be a two-parter. She's like, we only have 2 episodes left this season, so you're out of luck.
yeah. And I understand that it's a big topic too. And maybe you are going to do a Q&A also to pair with this. We'll see because people send in a lot of great questions, and you may be wondering like, wow, they've had a lot of pregnancy content this season. Yes, we have because that's what's on our mind. That's the community you're supporting. That's the season I'm in for my first baby rodeo, but also because I think there's a lot of stuff out there that is just dumb information, misleading information, stupid advice from people who are not doctors. Well, you set it up too. Those are just that's like the gist of why we want to bring this to you, but tell us why now?
Yeah, I think this is like, from my perspective as a fitness professional who is very well versed in the pelvic floor and pregnancy mechanics, physiological changes, all that stuff. And like, you know, we talk about this a lot on the show about being a learn-it-all and not a know-it-all. Obviously, the more I learn about the pelvis and the pelvic floor, the more I'm like, I know nothing. But
You do know your way around a pelvis, and you did bring it today.
she's here. She's here, guys. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding a pelvis. But it's just like, from my perspective as a fitness professional with this knowledge and all of the women I've supported in this season, being a mom of 3 myself, like pregnancy is such an incredible time to get strong, to learn about our bodies, to learn about our pelvic floors. For many of us, unfortunately, that's the first time we like find out we have a pelvic floor, to learn about our core, how it actually functions, to learn how to help us manage pain, prep for labor. Like there's so much
Not just
that we can.
Kegels.
Yeah, and it's just an incredible season for fitness, and I feel like unfortunately things have gone very sideways when it comes to helping us understand this time and how to support our bodies. We definitely talked about this on our pregnancy don'ts that Diane do's.
Yes, we did. And I think it came up
But
elsewhere too. Like my mom will text me and she'll be like, "Are your midwives still okay with you lifting?" AKA, I am worried about, all kinds of silly stuff. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just like there's so much when it comes to the fitness and movement side of things. So we wanted to like give this its own episode. I think I get questions about this all the time. I think one of the number one questions I get when people reach out about my programs is like, is it pregnancy safe? And this language is so funny to me. We talked about this a little bit on that episode we did when we focused more on like the food and lifestyle stuff. But when did it become this thing where we don't even talk about how to like support women during pregnancy? It's just like, here are the things that are off limits. Like, here are the things that are not safe for you to do. It's like,
it's a lot.
Such a fearful, like this fear mongery approach. I don't know. It's just like, I find it confusing that we're not taking this amazing gift that we have and teaching women how to utilize it. On the food side, on the fitness side, it's just like, here is the list of things you can't eat or do.
Yeah, it's
and
really
just like,
long. And lay on the floor and look at the sky. And then on the flip side, I know this is something that we've talked about, is whether it is the general fitness space on Instagram or even parts of the holistic or alternative health space, is a lot of fitfluencers with abs who aren't fitness professionals, have never worked with clients, but they got abs really quickly and they're like showing how they can just lift 3 times their body weights the last trimester or get their body snatched right after baby. And so there's a lot of that to work through too.
Yeah, it's like the two sides of this is like, we have a lot of these OBs who are dishing out fitness advice where they literally know nothing about human movement. Like they are surgeons and they don't know anything about fitness, specifically fitness in the pre-postnatal season. And they're just like, why don't you try prenatal yoga? Like, just like, we'll get to that later in the
doctor
episode.
is so funny to me because I'm like, they don't know.
They don't know. And then like Diane said, the other side of it is like, there'll be a fitness influencer who like gets pregnant one time and then doesn't even many times doesn't even pursue continuing education or pursues one like shitty prenatal cert and is like, now I'm putting out this prenatal fitness program or this prenatal guide, and trust me, I had a baby. And yeah, don't trust them.
Right.
That's
And if you have multiple, if you have other kids and your doctor's like, don't lift over 20 pounds, are you supposed to say to your toddler, like, back?
Stop right there. Back, boy.
Back. I cannot pick you up, or I can't carry groceries. So the goal of this episode is to tackle dumb things that you've probably been told by unqualified people, help you feel like you can approach pregnancy with less fear and feel smart and strong and empowered in your fitness through your pregnancy and beyond, and just make you feel good in your body, because there's already a lot of stuff going on during pregnancy, but you can feel strong. You can still build strength. We'll talk about the common OB advice, some questions that you've sent in, I'm sure will work in here. Adina's approach as a seasoned 10 plus years in fitness professional to helping you feel strong in your body, how to move through pregnancy and through different trimesters with the energy you've got. So yeah, lots of good stuff.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, we always caveat these kind of things, especially when we shit on doctors and we're like, there are great doctors out there, but like, we just want you to be empowered and to understand how to wade through this information and find information that will actually support you. And like, I say this because I wanted to bring up pelvic PTs for a second, because we are a huge fan of pelvic floor physical therapy. And I think it can be an amazing, amazing tool to support women alongside strength training and other modalities. And we want you to understand how to navigate finding professionals that are actually qualified to support you, because there are really great pelvic PTs out there. But there are also many pelvic PTs out there who, yeah, they understand the pelvic floor in isolation, but if they're not guiding you towards strength training and they're not using a full body strength first approach, I highly recommend you shop elsewhere for your pelvic PT, because like Diane said, like when we're thinking about this ancestrally, we're thinking about this in the context of our own lives. Like, if you can't lift your toddler, what did this help you get back to the things you need to be doing in your life? Like, if you can't chase after your kids, if you can't make it through your pregnancy,
It's like
like
9, almost 10 months sometimes of.
yeah.
What?
And like life only gets heavier after the baby's born too. So like
Literally.
we need to be thinking about this from a strength first approach and a holistic approach, and not just looking at pieces of the body in isolation. So I just wanted to preface with that, because there are wonderful practitioners out there, but we want you guys to be informed and to learn how to find the ones that are going to be the right care team for you and the right support team for you, so that you can navigate your pregnancy with as minimal pain as possible, or learn how to support yourself out of pain when things do come up, how to support you to understand the mechanics of your pelvis so that you can, again, get through pregnancy comfortably. You can prep for labor. You can prep for this postpartum season where you now have this tiny human that you just got to carry around all the time when you're run down and many of your other needs aren't being met. So strength in pregnancy, learning how to approach fitness in pregnancy in a way that is supportive of your body and not in this like, is it pregnancy safe?
Yeah,
like,
I'm gonna
but
hurt
can I
myself.
do that? Like,
Right.
is it pregnancy safe to lift your toddler? Like, let's figure out how we can use this thing to support our lives and not look at this thing and be like, I'm scared. How do
Yes.
I do it safely?
Right. So if you've been worried about the don'ts, or you are weighing like where to even start as you are early in pregnancy or approaching that season, let's go through some common OBGYN advice. We already went over a couple of common ones that are frankly stupid, but let's go through them. So I'll set them up and then Adina can tell us why they're dumb. And if you hear them from your provider, just count that as like a little note, like, all right, we're going to take
Yep.
this with a grain of salt and then take
Little radar goes up, just like,
Yeah.
oh, well, hello.
a little
It's us again.
outfit change. I mean, it's
Those of you watching on YouTube, my hair looks better now.
Mine was much floofier the other day, but I do have a striped shirt again. Just a
I went
different
from a
colorway.
white tee to a black tee.
And it is a little bit brighter here, both in the weather and hopefully the recording. Adina and I were frustrated that we had some
I'm just gonna
tech
do these
issues.
eyeballs.
Yeah. And we're also saying that in the, what is this, season 3? In the 3 seasons we've been doing this, we have encountered some tech issues this season that we never have before. So maybe we're just getting them out of our system.
I do think the introduction of video added complications for sure. And then when we tried to go like higher quality video, we had some complications. And it's just like something about this is just been more complicated, but
Yeah,
I'll
that
give
and
the brief
war, you know.
rundown. Oh, the war. Yeah. So last week we started this episode. I was so frustrated when we got started. I was exhausted and I was like, if one more thing goes wrong, I'm going to hurl my laptop into the sea.
You did say that.
And then I showed up. Diane showed up. She was cranky too. We put out a banger. We recorded such a good episode
So
for you.
good. An hour and 30 minutes, we shall say.
Yes, straight masterclass. Like, so good. So good. The dynamic was on. The information was on. It was just perfection. And then I went to edit that nugget. And we had an hour and a half of video, my video. We had an hour and a half of Diane's video. We had an hour and a half of Diane's audio. And we had 30 minutes of my audio. My mic cut out.
Yep.
And so everything beyond that point was unusable. So
Adina said, who wants to cry first?
Yeah. I texted Diane, who's going to cry first.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was so numb. I didn't cry. It might happen now. But
I just
here we
clenched
are.
my pelvic floor instead.
Back again. We went right into action mode. We were like, okay, when can we record the second hour of the episode? So
Here's
we
to it
are.
being better than last time, even better. I always tell my
It-
clients this or something better when things go awry. And I mean, you could call it toxic positivity. I don't think so. Where's the harm in thinking like this is going to be even better?
Yeah.
So here it
Love
is.
that. What's
So
toxic about that?
yeah, because they're like, "Oh, I'm going to positively gaslight myself that it's going to be wonderful. So with that in mind,
Yes, we're not going to derail this episode, but we will just acknowledge that we started recording pre-election day, and now it is post-election day.
yeah,
So things have changed.
yeah,
Things have changed.
things have
People
changed.
are feeling types of ways.
We're staying offline for the most part, but
Yeah.
let's do it. Let's get into the meat. So where we left off, we were about to set up common OB advice you might hear. Like, let's say you walk in there and you're like, I'm preg, or I'm gonna get preg. And they're like, whoa. Okay, so when it comes to exercise, you can do whatever you were doing before pregnancy. That's one of the first ones, right? And what's the problem with that?
Dumb. This is dumb. End of thought. No, it's dumb because I don't want to shit on this one too much, because I do think OBs endorsing movement, especially strength training, valuable.
Right, this
better
one
than
might
them
come as a
being like,
surprise because,
yes. Yeah, that's better than being like, go sit on a couch for 9 months. Like,
which they also say.
yes. However, it does depend what you were doing before. Like, if you were addicted to CrossFit or spin, there are aspects of those modalities that would not be extremely supportive of pregnancy. And if you have been just like an athlete that was doing one thing one way your whole life and had no awareness of your pelvic floor, your breathing mechanics, like, I would tell you that this is a really good time to do something different than what you've been doing, because many of our people that love to just like crush their spin classes, they might be very surprised to, whoop, here comes a pelvis. If you're watching on the video.
Adina has pulled down her pants.
Dwight is wearing a Muppet Baby tattoo. So you might be really surprised to find out that the back of your pelvic floor is completely clenched from sitting on that bike for so long. And like, it'd be really valuable for you to learn how to open her up.
How to pop that thing open.
Oh yeah, same thing with CrossFit. Like, if you haven't learned how to manage pressure in your core, if you are strictly doing barbell Olympic lifts and then you get pregnant and your belly grows and your bar path is going to change considerably, it's going to impact your shoulder mobility, your shoulder stability. Like, it's not going to be a pretty picture. Not a pretty picture.
No.
So I would encourage you to, if you want to keep Olympic lifting throughout your pregnancy, learn to do that with a kettlebell, or learn to do something that still fills that, like, I need to feel athletic and powerful and fast, but I can do it in a modality that's more supportive of my pelvic floor and my changing body.
All right, so still strength train with modifications, what I heard there. Now, this one, kind of on the opposite end, your OB might say, don't start doing anything new. Don't start doing anything new. So if you weren't training, you better not start at all right now, right?
Yes, and this is dumb, as you can imagine, because, like, what an amazing time to learn to get strong and to learn about your body and to learn about your pelvic floor. So I think that obviously don't just like jump into something with no guidance. This
Right.
is an amazing time to hire a coach, to get on a program, to go to a community-focused gym that supports women in this season of life. So don't be dumb about it, but absolutely you should start strength training. Absolutely. And like,
And that was a question that you received. I mean, we're going to do some more listener questions at the end of this episode, but someone asked, like, can I start now? I'm pregnant now. Or maybe they were in their second or I think third trimester. Someone else who asked if they could strength train, and your answer was yes, right?
yeah, absolutely. You totally should. Like, whenever people reach out to me in this season, they're like, I've never strength trained before, but I'm nervous about pregnancy or I'm nervous about becoming a mom. I'm like, this is my favorite season to teach someone to lift weights. Like, let's go. And also, because there's that blank slate, it's so nice to be able to teach mechanics without this person having all these stories in their head of what the lift is supposed to look and feel like now that things are so different. Like, you as a first-time pregnant athlete can probably attest to the fact that things look and feel very different from a lifting perspective. So getting used to that sometimes can be easier if you've never trained before and this is your first go around.
Right. Instead of having to undo all sorts of CrossFit mechanics or things that are better suited to someone who is not pregnant. Yep. So, yeah. So this next one I have heard from OBs who are not fitness professionals. If we haven't said that reminder earlier, like, let's say it again. Like, they are doctors, they're surgeons, they're not fitness professionals. But also I've heard this from family when they respond to my story of me doing kettlebell swings last month with my pregnant belly. Are your midwives still okay with you lifting? Ooh, are you sure that it's okay to be lifting?
Don't lift more than 15 pounds. What do they say?
And like, I have a 18-pound pug. Like, am I not going to carry him? Or to anyone listening to this who might already have another little or a couple of pets that they want to pick up, what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to get your groceries in your house?
I can't lift you. You are more than 15 pounds.
Get back.
You stay right back, boy. Stay right there. Don't come any closer.
So that one is also dumb.
So dumb.
This next one is very popular too, and I'm sure this one might shock you because it is so common, and there are some good things you can take away from it, but that is prenatal yoga is a great idea, and make that your main form of movement in pregnancy.
Yeah, this is dumb and unfortunately extremely common recommendation. Like, so common. I think OBs recommend this all the time. I think pregnant women just have this idea that, like, you get pregnant and then you just do prenatal yoga, and
I can see why it sounds gentle
and
right?
relaxing. And we've done an episode before about, like, is yoga really as restorative as you think? Was that the title? That's good.
I think it was. Your recall is...
Woof, she's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing that's really tricky about this is that many women struggle with hypermobility to begin with, right? Especially the populations we work with, because there is a large correlation with autoimmunity and hypermobility. Now, these are the women who may have gravitated towards yoga their entire lives because they liked to feel successful, and they were the ones in the yoga classes that could get into the perfect windmill position and
palms
the
on the
perfect
floor,
forward fold, and the perfect, whatever other yoga poses there are. It's been a while for me in yoga. But anyways, they were the ones who were always getting that perfect feedback from their instructors, and they could make those perfect shapes the way they looked in the manuals and by the influencers. Mm-hmm. And so they gravitated towards yoga in general. And then they get pregnant and they're like, this sounds restorative. However, now on top of that hypermobility, they're also experiencing this brand new fun hormone, relaxin, that's trying to relax their joints to make space in their pelvis, in their ribs for this shifting baby and belly. And so
I thought that relaxin would feel really good, but now I'm learning that
it's relaxin.
It makes some stuff hurty.
Yeah. So the combination of the hypermobility and the relaxin, it's like now all of a sudden we're lacking all this joint stability and stuff hurts and stuff doesn't feel good. So if you're a person who your shoulders were always kind of cranky, or when you stand up, your knees go behind your hips, you are the person who I would say, do not do the prenatal yoga because it's going to make you feel way achier. And you should be focusing on strength training, stability, controlling the end ranges of motion so that you are not stressing those joints, those elbows, those shoulders, those knees, those hips, that SI joint, and all of that stuff around that pelvis that can start to just feel so creaky and uncomfortable because
And don't
your
I
body
know
just
it.
doesn't know its limits. Yeah.
I've had some body work that I'm really thankful I've been able to bring in, as well as building stability inside of STHH prenatal phase 2, which I love so much. But at the same time, like, whoo, that relaxant is working, and like the SI pain, or just noticing like things are moving more than I would like them to. I mean, I know they need to, but these ribs relaxing are like also grinding my gears. Now this, I mean, this, when I saw this in the outline, not gonna lie, it triggered me a little bit, because I was like, well, it feels like prenatal yoga is so like entry level, it's approachable, especially if maybe someone didn't move a lot pre-pregnancy, or they enjoyed yoga pre-pregnancy. And if you're feeling the same way, something I wanted to bring up as someone who's also gone through STHH is I love that the prenatal tracks and a lot of the other programming borrows movements that may feel familiar to you from yoga. Like some of my favorites from the labor prep, we're doing like a windmill position, the arm bars kind of feel familiar, and like half kneeling poses. And so there are some things that feel familiar, but I'm also finding that I'm building strength and getting like the relief from the aches and pains of pregnancy. So it feels like there's crossover, all that to say. Is there anything else you want to add there? Oh, and there's child's pose and rock back, which I love.
Lots of child's pose. We love that.
A lot of it.
And of course, like Coach Veronica and myself, we've been in this industry for a long time, and we are self-proclaimed learn-it-alls and not know-it-alls. And I will always tell you what I have taken from experiences in my life going to yoga classes when I was first learning to be a trainer. What was it in there that felt really supportive? But then how can we utilize our modality of load kettlebells to control these positions and to help people find stability in them? So the main thing that I borrow from yoga in this prenatal season is just all the props. You know, like you go to a yoga class and you get the pillows, the blocks, the bolsters, and they like put you in these positions that are just so supported and you feel so nice. So that I think is really useful. There's a lot of coaching that I do around using props and supports in breathing positions to make belly feel more comfortable, to help you find some space in the rib cage. However, we're going to set you up that way. And then like you were saying with something like a windmill, where there might be like triangle pose in yoga where you're finding this position and you're finding some rotation at the hips. We're going to put you in a position where we're really controlling those hip positions, but we're also putting a bell overhead to make you have to stabilize and not go beyond your joint limits in those positions. So all of a sudden it's like my main task in this position is to stabilize this bell overhead, to be squeezing it with my grip and lighting up that whole central nervous system, getting all my shoulder stabilizers on board. And then it's going to make me control that end range in the hips, in the back, especially if we're coaching it really well and you're finding good connection and stability in that position. And that is going to do so much more for those joints than just like getting loosey-goosey into this position without controlling.
Super stretchy. It feels so good. Totally. And with that in mind, as we're thinking about triangle, I'm going to jump ahead and we'll come back to the cardio piece. And should you do it? How should you do it during pregnancy? What are you being told to do? Is 2 very common recommendations from OBs. Don't lie on your back and don't twist or rotate. So if you're just listening to like this yoga piece and Adina talking about like getting rotation at your hips and so on, you might be thinking, well, wait, I thought I was not supposed to twist my body around when I'm preg. So what?
So this one is actually like a great example of something I unlearned and relearned, because when I did my first like prenatal cert, it was like 2013 when I first became a trainer. And this was like what they told us, like you don't twist in pregnancy because it's like not safe for the baby, which again, that lens of like, is it safe? You know, like we were just viewing everything through this lens of like, is it safe? And not how can this thing support us in this time? Mm-hmm. And since then, obviously, I have learned so much more about body mechanics and gotten way less fearful around moving my body.
Baby is like pushing against this. Wow, that's a foot.
That was a foot.
That was a foot.
Since then, I have learned way more about body mechanics and become more trusting of my own body and not like, I'm going to twist this way and smush my baby. Like,
well, you're not going to be putting yourself into a pretzel, but
it's just like the way they taught it to us. It felt like the baby was like on the outside of the belly and any movement was going to like impact, you know what I mean?
I have had that thought turning over in bed. Sometimes I'm like, am I crushing her when I lay? And I put my pillow wedged under my side. Like, am I crushing her? I was like, oh, she's fine.
Also, like, I mean, I have, like, when I was pregnant with Ori, it was like I had 2 toddlers basically that were like crawling, climbing on me all the time. I'm sure Doug has put a paw on your belly and you've been like, he's just high-fiving her, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
crawling.
But anyways, so like this idea that we can't twist or rotate, it's very archaic and outdated. And not only that, twisting and rotating is so necessary and beneficial in this season. I'm sure you can attest to how just like locked up you feel in that upper back and in those hips. And the way that we protect ourselves when we don't feel good is we just like clamp down and like make everything so stiff. And so if we can actually like let go and reach and rotate, and now reaching and rotating has become like a cornerstone of my prenatal and postpartum programming. And I have seen, anecdotally, it has done wonders for helping my athletes to regain function at a diastasis, which we can talk more about later on, but that spreading of that connective tissue between your 6-pack muscles to make space for baby, a very natural occurrence in all pregnancies. But some of us kind of struggle to put those pieces back together and regain function after baby's born. And what I have seen as a very big missing piece for so many people is that reach and rotation, is that gaining that connection across the whole body and allowing those ribs to move, getting that shoulder blade to glide on the rib cage. Like, all these things are connected. I think we forget that, like, we're so focused on the breath work if we've been following someone who does like core rehab or whatever, but our diaphragm is inside of our rib cage. So like what our ribs are doing and what our shoulder blade is doing is like of the utmost importance. You know, we can't just ignore that. It's crucial in pregnancy and postpartum.
Yeah, so I definitely have been feeling it where if I've been sitting for too long, I want to stretch. And there are some stretches that a practitioner gave to me where I'm kind of like twisting, putting my knee up on a chair, and that like feeling when I'm kind of crossing my body and the feeling of stretching my lats, or some of the labor prep that you have outlined in the program are so great. So you can twist or rotate, but provided that you're following a program where they know what the cuss they're doing, and you can lie on your back. And in the pregnancy don'ts that Diane does episode, you can also probably sleep on your back too. Your body will let you know if it's not a supportive position for you.
That's one where I would say, like, you kind of just have to listen to your body. Like, sure, there are some people in their 3rd trimester where they lay on their back and they just feel like,
I can't breathe.
She's mushing me. Like, this doesn't feel good. And then for some people, that is like still the best position for them to be pressing, to feel connection to their lower abs and their pelvic floor. Like, a position that I really love for pushing movements when push-ups are no longer an option for my athletes in that like late 3rd trimester is like a floor press with your knees bent, squeezing a yoga block or a Pilates ball or a pillow, because that squeeze of the inner thighs helps to bring pelvic floor on board, helps to bring those lower abs on board when they feel like they live miles apart from each other now. And it's like so hard to get them to talk.
Yeah.
And still allows that to maintain that pushing strength, which we need so much in this season, but in a way that's really supportive and still allows us to use our abs. But then there's other people who that position does not feel good for anymore. And we can utilize things like props, like we were talking about, wedges or bolsters, if you can't be completely on your back and you want to be elevated just a little bit so that you feel like not everything just like smooshing you.
Yes.
But again, it's totally individual, and your body will tell you if it is not a position it wants to be in anymore.
Yeah, totally. So use common sense there. Already I've noticed how some of the earlier training, be it from prenatal phase 1 or movements pre-pregnancy, and then definitely in prenatal phase 2, have helped me to get out of bed, which is difficult this far in my 3rd trimester. But getting up out of bed, and when I feel like my core strength is very low. The mechanics have definitely helped me figure out how to get out of bed.
And that's the whole thing we're talking about too here, is like utilizing strength, learning more about how your body works, learning more about your pelvis, learning more about your rib cage, learning more about your pelvic floor, and then utilizing those things to be supportive to you in pregnancy. It's not just like look at this thing and be like, is it safe? It's like, how can this make my life better and easier to live in this wild season?
Yes, exactly. The last one that we want to cover is the common recommendation to avoid getting your heart rate too high. So what, above 140 if you're wearing a monitor?
I think that was the recommendation when I like first did my prenatal certification 2013, like the first one I did. And honestly, ACOG, like the American College of Gynecology, has changed their recommendation since then. But I think so many OBs like don't even look at those anymore. It's just like whatever I learned when I first started being an OB. It's like, that's the thing I'm going to tell everyone. But this is another one that's so fear-based, and you can work hard in pregnancy. It's okay. You can work hard, but don't be dumb. Like
don't go to hot yoga and get your heart rate up.
Yeah,
in there.
I wouldn't go do sprints in a sauna, go jump rope in a sauna. I wouldn't like go do hill sprints in Tel Aviv in the summer. But you can chase after your toddler and not be like, what's my heart rate? Like, you know what I mean? You can do a hard set of kettlebell swings and huff and puff a little bit and then recover and eat and drink the minerals and be okay. Like, we are resilient, and being pregnant is not a disability. You just have to learn to listen to your body. If you're a person who gets your heart rate up and then you are huffing and puffing and can't catch your breath and can't recover and your heart feels like it's going to fly through your chest, like, maybe we didn't have the foundation, or maybe we didn't get enough sleep the night before, or, you know, like, use your judgment.
And I think our regulars will know this because we've done many an episode about it in seasons past. But when we say you can get your heart rate up, we are not talking about, go to that boot camp class, go to that HIIT class. This instead would be short bursts, right? Controlled with appropriate rest.
Yeah.
Key distinction there. Okay, so we talked about common advice, common things you may have heard, including a lot of dumb things you may have heard. Now let's cover what Adina would consider the best approach for training through pregnancy and goals throughout pregnancy. So spoiler alert, the first one is to get strong, stay strong.
Yes, this will serve you. This will serve you in your pregnancy and for the rest of your life, is get as strong as you can. Again, this doesn't mean compete in powerlifting. You know, get as strong as you need to be so that your life is easier to live, so that your pregnancy is easier to navigate, so that your birth is something that you are prepared for. You can be in and sustain hard positions to be in that might be the most comfortable positions for you to labor in. And then you have maintained muscle mass on the other side of it when you are postpartum and your muscle mass just wants to go bye-bye. So that's like the big piece, is like get strong, stay strong. The other thing that I think can be so beneficial, which we've touched on quite a bit through this beginning part, is supporting your shifting body and making your life easier to live. Learning about your mechanics, learning about how to utilize your core connection, how to utilize your strong glute muscles, your strong back muscles, so that as things shift, you can understand how to shift your mechanics so that you still feel supported. How to utilize things that we learn about our pelvis to be able to navigate those shifts that are happening in your pelvis, shifts that are happening at your feet, at your rib cage, all this stuff we've been touching on. And then the other major piece of this, which I think is so important, is utilizing training in this season to ditch or manage pain and pelvic floor symptoms.
I love that you said manage, because I know you've talked about how it's not necessarily realistic to expect that you're going to be completely out of pain or discomfort rather during pregnancy, right? Like things are shifting rapidly, especially in second, third try. So what do you mean by that, by like manage the pain?
Yeah, I think there's this misconception on both sides of it, where we have this one thing where people go into pregnancy thinking like, I am definitely going to be in pain. I'm definitely going to be wildly uncomfortable. We'll have all these symptoms because there's so much popular media around how miserable pregnancy is. And I think that that is like one narrative of like, you will definitely be in pain. And I want you to understand that like pain is not a requirement of pregnancy. However, it is also unrealistic to think that, oh, I am a person who trains, so obviously I won't have any pain or discomfort in my pregnancy. And pain is a part of life. We've talked about this on pain episodes that we've done. Pain also has a large mindset component to it. And pain also is multifactorial, right? There's a lot of things that contribute to it. But we can utilize things that we learn from our training to support our bodies to help us to navigate that. And so it's not like, oh, I will never deal with that creaky thing in the back of my right hip ever again.
Right. I did the 12-week program and my shoulders and neck are never, ever going to hurt again. Maybe that's an unrealistic expectation.
Right. But maybe when that creaky thing in the back of your right hip does come up, you can think back to all of the coaching that we did, all the things that felt supportive at the time. And it's like, oh, maybe if I shift my left hip back slightly, it will feel better. Or maybe if I squeeze that block between my thighs, it will feel better. Or maybe if I focus on how I'm positioning my pelvis, it will feel better. Or maybe if I put on that compressive belly band that helps me to remember to connect to my abs at this stage, it will feel better. You know, so there's a lot that we can learn and do that will help us to navigate when those symptoms do creep up.
I love that. And this is consistent with the approach that I take too with nutritional therapy, is teaching clients the why, like how your body should work and why a certain symptom or issue might be happening, and then using your tools or strategy from there to be your best advocate or to learn how to be like your own coach, not your own coach, but you've said over the years to see yourself from a coach's eye. And that's also the beauty of having a quality program or being in a membership like Adina's SDHH Club, is getting that feedback from Adina or Coach Veronica. So that ties in with this next one, is understand more about your pelvic floor and how to prep for labor.
Yes, this is a massive goal that needs to be a part of your prenatal training season. I think a lot of people miss out on this, especially the fitness influencer world, the conventional fitness world, where they're like, I'm a superhero. I got pregnant and didn't have to change my program at all. And look at me, 9 months pregnant and squatting this weight or pressing this.
Or maybe they don't have
and
pregnant clients that they work with if they're a coach.
Yeah, and cool for you. But I guarantee you will get so much more out of this experience if you take this season to understand more about your pelvic floor and to utilize your training to help you to prep for labor. And again, in the name of not setting unrealistic expectations, it's not to say that if you follow this program and you do our labor prep series, you will have a perfect birth with no surprising outcomes and everything will be perfect and dandy.
Yeah.
We wish that for you. And there is certainly a better chance when we are actually focusing on our pelvis mechanics, you know, but so much can happen. Birth is very unpredictable. And so it's not like I'm going to sell you this program and it will guarantee your birth outcome.
Right. But I like what you said of it is giving you a better chance, a better shot. Because, and since we last tried to record this episode, I almost sent this to you, but I loved how someone said like preparing for birth. And especially like if someone wants to go for unmedicated or wants to try things a different way and be like a really active participant in their birth, like it's like training for a marathon. This person said, I want to do the marathon, but the thing is like it could be a marathon I have to start at any time within like a 4-week span. Like I could be sleeping and they'd be like, you got to run it now. You got to go lace up your shoes and run it now. And so why not prepare as best you can mentally, know different strategies to get out of pain, to cope with discomfort, to psych yourself up versus just trying to wing that marathon. So I really love that analogy. And it just made me laugh because I was like, yeah, you could be baking cookies. You could be like sleeping and they're like, you got to run this marathon. Wild. But one thing I have loved from being an STHH not postpartum yet, looking forward to that, prenatal too, is knowing more about my pelvic floor, because I have been clenching on and it's just, I'm at this point where things feel heavy and my pelvic pelvic floor feels like it weighs 100 pounds just on its own. And I know like, okay, well, I'm feeling really tight. And I remember Coach V saying like this tabletop position or this other hinge felt really good. And I know I felt good after we did that on the call. So I can do that and try to help myself a little bit, versus the narrative so largely seems to be elsewhere to just, well, lay down, don't overdo it, don't do anything, or just suck it up.
Yeah. Dumb. Because like you said, your pelvic floor is working overtime right now. So even if nothing else was going on, just the fact of growing a baby, center of mass shifting, there's this extra demand on the pelvic floor all day just from existing. Like, forget about whatever else you do outside of that or any other stresses that come up. So once we have this added demand and the pelvic floor is responding in this way where it's just like trying to keep your organs in or just feels overworked, right? There's that tension of just like, I'm working too hard. Like,
it's heavy. I felt the other night, I told Neil, I was like, it feels like she's knocking on my cervix with her little hand. Like, I'm feeling these flutters on both sides under my belly. And then I felt like it was on my cervix.
That's a feeling.
That's a
feel
feeling.
like, you almost feel like their fingers could just like pop right out of your vagina at that point, you know?
Yeah. It's an experience.
So good. Such an experience. But yeah, like, if we were to just say, okay, let's ignore this thing, do you know what would happen? Is your pelvic floor would just keep clenching and tightening and clenching and tightening because it's like it's overworked and it's not getting that break. And this is a huge piece of why so many people struggle with leaking so much in the third trimester, is because it's overworked. You're in a position that's not advantageous for being able to function properly because this back is like clamping down. Your belly is, sorry if you're listening on the audio, this is one to watch the YouTube. There's going to be a lot of pelvic
The pelvis is out. Mm-hmm.
As our rib cage spreads and flattens to make room for baby, our pelvis spreads and flattens to make room for baby. So we're kind of stuck in this external rotation position, and I'll talk about this more when we get to the third trimester recommendations. But the back of your pelvic floor can just get so tight from trying to stabilize everything, and this is when you see people doing that like waddle in the third trimester, or like their butt just starts to disappear in the third trimester. It's just like we are clenched and we're trying to counterbalance for the belly heading this way.
See, and I always thought that if you're leaking that things are loose, but you're actually tight.
And also what's interesting is that a lot of times it's because this back is so tight and this front is so overworked, and we just can't figure out how to get a true contraction here in the front. So something we do a lot actually in SCHH postpartum is I have you like sit on a ball and rock forward and back and pull up your pelvic floor in different positions to feel how this pelvis position is impacting your leaking, your symptoms, your ability to get a true pelvic floor contraction. So leaking in that third trimester can be a really big result of that back being so clenched and tight, this position just kind of like being not ideal for actually controlling what's happening here. But I say all that to say that learning about this and learning what your tendencies are and learning to find the space here can make a massive difference in your experience of labor and just how prepared you feel to navigate those different shifts and
I love
the
it.
different phases. Yeah.
I was rocking around here because it made me realize like I've been sitting in the same spot. And another thing that I borrow from yoga is the yoga ball.
Yeah, lovely.
I am
we love it.
loving sitting on and like rocking around on that. So great. So now let's move into how to move throughout pregnancy. And we're going to break this down by trimester because things change throughout the course of pregnancy. So starting up with first trimester, what are the goals? How should you be moving?
She a rough one. Yeah, if you've experienced a first trimester, you know it can be something. It can be exhausting.
Nauseating.
It can be nauseating. You can just feel like, have I been roofied? Like, why can't I keep my eyes open?
Yeah.
And so with the first trimester, we just don't want to put too much pressure on ourselves. And we want the goal to just be some movement, some blood flow. Perhaps this can help you manage your nausea. I just don't want to hit my mic anymore because I'm just so nervous going to disconnect. even if you have told yourself this story that like I'm too nauseous to move, you might be surprised by how much some movement, maybe a sunshine walkie or just some simple gentle strength training. I love the term gentle strength training. Some simple strict strength lifts might be able to make a big difference for you. So focusing on walking outdoors if you can, and then the leastest programming, which is an example of programming that we do in our memberships for like that minimum effective dose, just like a little bit of something to keep you feeling comfortable, to keep your body moving, because sometimes when you just rot on that couch, like,
especially if you're so exhausted, and
it doom spirals. Like you get more tired, you get more nauseous, and you just feel useless, and you're like, what is my body telling me? Like, this does not feel good.
Right. And I don't know, this was probably in our previous recording, but I was reminded of this reel or TikTok of someone saying, oh, unfortunately, it's true, exercise does give you energy, but then how do you get going when you don't have energy? And that's where something like the leastest is so nice. So that's only in the club, right? The membership. So that is something I really enjoyed through my first trimester so much. And it was before I had switched over to the prenatal, but there were definitely days where I was like, I'm just so tired. I was fortunate that I didn't have nausea or vomiting in this pregnancy experience, but definitely feeling so tired. And so sometimes I would just start and say, all right, I don't even know if I have energy for the leastest, but I'm going to start and see where I end up. And I was usually able to make it through most of that and surprise myself. So I love how you've really pared it down to the essentials. So you're still getting good workout, even if you are short on time and energy.
Yeah, we're still supporting that blood flow. We're supporting maintaining that muscle mass, because we know that blood sugar plays a massive role in nausea.
Yes.
If you're a person who was struggling with morning nausea, and then you realize that if you left a snack by your bed and put it in your mouth before you even opened your eyes, you felt better.
Right. There's a big hormonal piece too, but the blood sugar piece is a big one with our early pregnant clients for sure.
Yeah, like if you're like, oh shoot, I didn't eat enough today, and then you get like afternoon nausea, morning sickness is like really sickness. Poorly
nighttime
titled.
Sickness. Yeah, and my nutritional therapist note here, I know I've had this conversation many a time with our mutual clients, with our early pregnant clients, and that is, you better be fueling before and after your strength training workout. I mean, this goes to anyone, pregnant or not, but I like clients to bring their mock to their mineral rich mocktail, their mock to training, especially if you feel a little woozy. Like there was a time, I think I texted you and our friend Kim in the group chat, where I thought I hydrated and fueled adequately going into my leastest workout first trimester, and I was like, ooh, are there sparkles?
Yeah.
Ooh, and realized I needed something extra. So bringing a snack or having a snack that combines protein and carbs beforehand,
sugar and salt,
outside of that workout, but also sugar and salt during your workout is nice. So fuel yourself, please.
And that can really be the most challenging part of that first trimester is like you're finding it hard to eat, but you want to train. And so what can that look like?
Smaller meals, things that sound good to you. I know a lot of our clients do really well with smoothies, like those. This is a great time for protein powder. Yes.
Like freezing cold, salty, lemony, like that kind of thing with some protein powder can be so wonderful if like the idea of eggs or other animal proteins don't sound appealing at all.
Yeah.
And then
like if they can do citrus, for sure. I know some people might have reflux, heartburn, but for good digestion, if you can do citrus is lovely. Or sneaking in eggs in different deliveries that aren't so eggy, if you know what I mean. Like sometimes, like I know it's the same amount of egg. I think I said this on another episode, but like a hard boiled egg feels like a lot more than like, I don't know, a really eggy banana bread.
Yeah. Or sometimes like a hard boiled egg feels like less egg than a scrambled egg.
Yeah.
It's like just like 2 bites, just wow.
Egg science. I don't know.
Yeah. So yes, hydrate, fuel as best you can. Those mock cocks are going to be essential in this season, and like double down. Like Diane was saying, like, I thought I hydrated, but then I saw stars. Like your body is working overtime in that first trimester.
Doubling your blood volume. Hormones
the growth
are
is
surging.
Rapid. Yeah.
Like, lots of changes.
You need more than you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so second trimester, this you might start to feel, hopefully, I hope this experience happens for you, is feeling like you're in a bit of like the ovulation station energy where you've gotten through the first few months of pregnancy and you're starting to feel good. So how should that shift with your training goals and your approach to training in the second trimester?
Yeah, so wow, second try can be such a relief for so many people, you know? Just
Yes.
like on top of the world. And like we said, that main goal of pregnancy is get and stay strong. And this is a wonderful time to do it because you might feel like you have more energy. You might feel like you can eat more balanced meals, more animal protein. And so focusing in on that strength work, so important. And I think that the more I do this, the more variance I see specifically in this trimester. Like we have some athletes who it's like they're not even pregnant. Like they don't need any modifications. All of a sudden they're bringing back in all the plyometrics and their power and
Like an ability, and if baby or belly is in the way.
yeah. And so for some people, especially like if it's their first pregnancy or just the way they're carrying that pregnancy, like their belly might be much smaller than some of our other athletes who are like deep into what we would think of as like third trimester modifications.
Got it.
So this is the trimester where it can be so different for different women and in different pregnancies. Like you may have one pregnancy where your second trimester, you don't have to modify too much. And then you have another pregnancy where you're like, I feel like I'm about to give birth tomorrow. Like, why do I feel like things have shifted so much? Or, you know, this symptom is creeping up or whatever it is, which is why the way that we do it in the STHH Club is we don't go by trimester. We just kind of have like a phase 1 and a phase 2. And our athletes have to navigate on their own based on what's going on for them, obviously with the support of myself and Coach Veronica, when to shift from phase 1 to phase 2. And so for some people, this second trimester is not going to look that different from their pre-pregnancy training. And for some people, they're going to be using all the props and all the modifications and the wider stances to make room for belly and the boxes at the bottom of the squat to add some more stability and squeezing the block for some more core engagement. And, you know, like it
really
just could
depends.
look entirely different. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you told me that there is a, because it must happen so much, a frequently asked question in the membership about when to choose, because I first assumed that prenatal 1, that must be for the first half of pregnancy, and then prenatal 2 is for the second half, but then I realized it wasn't the case. And then this is my first baby rodeo, my first pregnancy. I chose to do the leastest or just the regular programming in the club until like month 5 or 6, and I was like, okay, you know what, pelvic floor is starting to act out a little bit. I'm feeling a bit more creaky. I know there was a time I went to go do a dead snatch and I was like, oh, I think I bumped my belly on the way up, on the way down, so maybe I switch now to something else. So I love
Yes,
that there are
it
different
is in the
options.
frequently asked questions. People tend not to read those, but it does, like, it is frequently asked because a lot of people need a little more hand holding. Like I remember there was a point where I forgot what it was. You were telling me you were dealing with something like some neck and shoulder pain. You were like, yeah, I did pull-ups yesterday. And I was like, you're
Why
still
do you
doing
do pull-ups?
pull-ups?
Yeah. I was like, well,
Wow. Yeah, so again, it can be totally unique to the athlete, but the big focus here, no matter who you are, should be on that breath work, starting to really understand how to get your rib cage moving with that breath, how to get your pelvic floor connection, starting to feel like, what kind of tension am I holding there? How can I recruit my pelvic floor and completely relax my pelvic floor? How can I still train my core and utilize my core effectively as my belly is starting to shift? Because yes, you can absolutely train core in pregnancy, and you should absolutely train core in pregnancy. It's just going to look a little bit different.
and not
than it
like
did
crunches
prior.
and Russian twists and yeah.
No, we love like Palloff presses and Palloff holds for our pregnant athletes. We love beast positions, especially beast positions where we're putting those hips in the air every so often because we want to focus on some of those inversions, get a little pressure off the pelvic floor. It can be so nice. But yeah, and then starting to account for that shifting belly in how we set up for exercises. Maybe that means some more props. Maybe that means a wider stance. Maybe that means holding a bell further out in front of you so that you have that counterbalance, like whatever that's going to look like for you, so that you can still gain strength, feel really good in your workouts, but not feel like, oof, this feels different. And then the other big piece here is starting to really understand the mechanics of the pelvis and focusing on a well-rounded program that's going to include all of the possible movements that our hip and pelvis can do. So we are starting to prep for having that space for labor. I'm going to grab my pelvis model for a sec just to demonstrate that real quick so people understand what we're talking about here. So like we said, as pregnancy progresses, and even before that, honestly, many of us are just holding on for dear life back here. If you've been listening to this podcast, you've heard us say unclench your beehole a million times, because many of us are just doing this.
Clenching.
Especially as we are starting to carry baby and ribs are flattening. The pelvis is always going to mirror what the rib cage is doing. So our pelvis starts flattening out, our rib cage starts flattening out. We're making room for baby, and we're kind of stuck in this external
don't I
rotation
feel that
position. Yeah, and this can be really stable. It can be a really stable position. It's our body trying to clamp down and create stability for us. However, look at how tiny
Look how
the back
tight.
of the pelvis got. This is that outlet where baby's supposed to come out from, but look how small it is now. So we want to learn how to do
big pelvis.
this, how to do internal rotation here, which again can be really hard at this stage, but we want to learn how to do this so that we can make as much room as we possibly
So this is
can
end
for
of the
baby.
second try still, right? And
I would do the second. I mean, this is where I want to start learning about it, and then it's going to be a huge focus in the third trimester. So we'll talk more about it.
You
there,
did start me off there, which was real nice. You're like, I think it's time you maybe would enjoy some of the labor prep. And I remember thinking to myself, like, is it too soon? I still got a few months left. You're like, start now. And
truly,
was I glad that I did.
besides from the fact that it feels so juicy and wonderful in that body when you're like holding all this tension all day, and then all of a sudden we find space here. Also, if you've been holding this tension for so long, like, one labor prep session is not going to be all your body needs to tell it to like let go and be safe to open up.
But it's simple enough that now I recall like what kind of the routine was, at least from the last block. But last night I was like doing some lunges and some things that you have in there, that some hinging. Oh, it was so good. But now that I'm in the third trimester, and for anyone who's approaching that
Here we go.
last stretch, what does that look like, or what could that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, the big goal here is just get ready for the big game. Let's go. Let's go. Get ready for the big game. You know what always makes me laugh? How like you're not allowed to say Super Bowl in all those like marketing things, so everyone calls it the big game.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. All the cooking shows that are doing like their big game cooking shows and like all the commercials leading up, like they're not allowed to say Super Bowl, so they all just say like big game. Anyway, so we're prepping for the big game, which means that our goal numero uno is learning how to relax that pelvic floor. Because here is a massive misconception, and if this is all you take away from this episode, it will be worth it. You do not need to train your pelvic floor for labor. Your pelvic floor does not need to be strong for labor to push your baby out. This is a misconception. Your pelvic floor needs to get the heck out the way so that your uterus can push the baby out, okay? Your uterus contractions are what pushes baby out, and your pelvic floor
Like a trap door.
needs to open up the
Open
trap door
sesame.
so that you can have that baby come on down. So if you are holding on for dear life, will
door
not
slammed
go very well.
shut.
No, we want to.
So literally loosen up, unclench.
Yes, so that's huge. Huge. The other big piece is, like we just talked about, is learning how to find internal rotation at the pelvis, and also learning how to find unilateral shifts at the pelvis where one side of the pelvis is going this way and one side of the pelvis is going that way. Because the way it works in labor is the first stage of labor, baby has to enter the pelvis. Okay, come on in. So we need external rotation for a baby to enter the pelvis. But all of us have this already. Like, it's pretty rare that someone doesn't have this, unless they're really, really stuck here. But of course, like, we're doing those deep squats. Like, this position is easier to find.
So that's like
Then-
early labor. Okay.
Yeah. once she in here, I'm going to say she because Diane's baby's a girl, so we're just going to use that as an example. Once she's in here, then she has to twist and rotate in here to come out the bottom. And so while she's twisting and rotating, we want to make this part as big as possible. And the way that we do that is by being able to find this position and this position. And what's really cool about that is you will see, I want to hear back from you after your labor experience,
From me?
which hopefully will be wonderful. But our body kind of naturally starts to do these things as we intuitively feel baby coming down the chute. Like now that you know those lunges that we've been working on, like you might start to feel this urge to like
Get in those.
kind of want to be in that position where I'm moving this leg this way and this leg this way and just like rock in this position a little bit.
And this is the beauty of if you, whether, you know, what, no matter the environment that you're going to be, if you are able to have a birth team, like a doula or someone who's like walked someone through this a lot, like they can also see you, hear you breathe, understand where you are in labor, and perhaps suggest some of those positions to you, is my understanding.
Yeah, totally. And then again, once baby comes through the mid pelvis, then they're going to need to come out this way. And so that's when we want to find that open bottom of the pelvis position, that internal rotation. This may look familiar from our hinges, which are essential in life throughout all of pregnancy, and especially in the third trimester, is just opening the back. You should feel that big stretch in the glutes, that big stretch in the back of pelvic floor, finding that space. And that is like, from all of the women I worked with, what I feel like is the most important thing to be working on in that third trimester. And then the other big goal for this trimester is just staying comfortable, utilizing everything you've learned to support some of those shifts and aches and pains and things that come up.
Sometimes it feels hard, I'm not gonna lie, but that's where I'm like, all right, I really haven't, I mean, I was so exhausted. I know that I overdid it after we were hosting. We had baby shower. We had a lot of like just personal but exciting life stuff going on too. And I was like, I overdid it. I did a lot of standing and a lot of sitting, and really heavily needed some of this labor prep to get and manage out of pain, get out of pain, and to manage some of it, honestly. So getting comfy, key.
Yes. The motion is the lotion. We've had so many pregnant athletes be like, I'm not going to come to the live call because my SI joint hurts. And then we're like, get your creaky ass to the live call. Diane, CCU tomorrow.
Yes. So I know some of you are on, is tomorrow? Friday.
No,
Friday?
I think it's Thursday this week.
Oh, I'll have to double check. But
yeah, check
I was telling myself, well, you know, I haven't moved in a while. I know that we just started a new block, and I'm deep into my third. Excuse me. She just kicked me really hard. She's
like, you better go, Mom.
Yeah, you better go. And that's the beauty of being live with V, is I know that once I show up, she will have modifications for me. And I know too, the last time I showed up, that there was like a lot less that I was doing. So she was modifying for other people who weren't pregnant, or I think someone else in the live call was postpartum, so they had something different they were doing. And the old me had to check myself at the door, because I was like, I feel like I should be doing more. But for where I'm at in pregnancy, V was like, you're gonna do a few reps here. How are you feeling? How are you gonna get out of feeling creaky? And it felt so good after I showed up. So yeah, I should be there.
The motion is the lotion.
Make sure I don't have a client call.
Yeah, you just touched on something which I think is a really important thing for a lot of people to hear, is don't be a hero in this season. This is not a time where you need to PR your lifts, you need to compete in powerlifting, you need to show Instagram that you are still strong. You are strong, and you should still be strong. But it could look like 2 days a week of one upper body pull and a lower body squat, and then the other day is an upper body push and a lower body hinge, and that could be your whole program. And just stay moving, stay strong, keep up your endurance, because, you know,
you'll need that for the marathon of labor.
Labor, you need some endurance in positions. Like, you might feel so good in a deep squat and want to labor there for a while, but if those quads are giving out, like, it's not gonna feel good. So yeah, that keeping up that strength, keeping up that endurance, but finding a way for your programming to just support where you're at in pregnancy, just keeping you moving and feeling good. In a way that's simple, in a way that's approachable, and just, like I said,
don't I need that reminder, honestly? Because I was feeling some type of way, like the old idea of like, well, if I was, an athlete. I gotta be someone who trains 3 times a week. But realistically for me right now, I am strength training going up and down the basement stairs, and my breath capacity is a lot lower. And so that's where something like the leastest, or getting the most out of the least in my prenatal phase 2 training, is really going to be helpful for me. So CC me. So shall we round this out with some rapid fire listener questions?
We shall. And I love how we were like, the second time we record this, it'll be shorter. And I think it's going to be like 5 minutes longer. But you know what?
Yeah.
The girlies need to hear these things. This is so important.
And they ask great
so
questions,
valuable.
which I know we've answered some of them just by way of going through this episode. But let's see. So let's see. We answered this one. First up, how long should sessions be?
Well, what do you have time for to stay consistent throughout your pregnancy? Like if you only have these 15-minute pockets, then that's how long your sessions should be. I don't think there's any need for a session to be longer than an hour in this season, but yeah, it's going to vary wildly depending on your capacity and your schedule.
So prioritize consistency over I have to hit,
Yes.
this many minutes in my workout. Okay, great. Lifting heavy in first trimester, docs are always talking about walking and yoga. I feel like we kind of covered this one, but do you have anything else to add here?
Yeah, I just want to reassure people that if you feel good to lift heavy, like that is totally fine. As we mentioned, a huge piece is going to be fueling properly and recovering, because you will be shocked by how much harder it is to recover in that first trimester. If you're a person who was like used to lifting really heavy and you felt good, especially if it's harder for you to eat or your sleep is interrupted, but because it's harder for you to eat, so you're not sleeping as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like again, it's entirely individual. Like, are you feeling ill? If so, it might not look the same. Something I do want to touch on, because I know this comes up for a lot of people. If you have had a miscarriage prior to the current pregnancy that you're experiencing, that can bring up just a lot of mental, emotional things. I know there's a lot of this feeling of like, is this going to harm my baby? And I know so many women can experience so much anxiety in that first trimester if they're coming back from loss. And so this is one of those times where, again, it could be really wonderful to have a coach who can support you through that. It is not a risk to your baby, but if that is going to largely impact your mental peace, you don't need to be lifting heavy. Movement is important. Blood flow is important. Learning more about your body. Again, maybe the support of a coach will help you to not feel anxious about that decision to continue lifting heavy.
Yes.
But if that is coming up for you, you are not alone. But trust your body, It's so hard to do in that season, but you can.
Yeah, coaching makes all the difference. This next two, I think we can answer them together. And that first one is, can I start training at 9 months when I have little motivation or energy? Or on the early end of that, is it still worth training first trimester if I'm exhausted and everything feels hard?
Oh, you just like combined some questions there. I was like, where are we?
So first try or the last couple of months, is it worth training if I'm feeling tired? And if so, how to go about that?
So yes, it absolutely is worth training. It is always worth training. But like we said, learning to modify in a way that is supportive to your body and your schedule can be extremely beneficial. Yeah, as far as starting at 9 months, like especially if you have little motivation or energy, absolutely. And I would listen back through that third trimester part of this episode, like movement and, supporting your body out of that creakiness, finding that space in the pelvis, finding that space in the pelvic floor. Like that is what I would absolutely be prioritizing at this point. And the motivation is such a silly word in my mind, because like we're never really going to be motivated consistently to train, and we need to train for the rest of our lives. Like you're going to have motivation for the rest of your lives.
That would be nice. But I see it like flossing, right? Like I don't love flossing, but I got to do it.
Right. So understanding the value is a huge piece of that, right? Like I floss because I know how gross it is if all that stuff's just like in my teeth.
Stinky.
So, like, but like I train because I know it makes me feel a million times better. It gives me energy. It makes me feel less creaky. It makes me feel prepared for the task at hand, especially if that's birthing a baby. So as far as motivation, I would just build this into my routine. Invest in a program with wonderful programming and other women who are in this season that can help to support you. Like there are so many pregnant women in the club right now, and I love when they are just hyping each other up and sharing about their training experiences. It's the best. So yeah, supportive community, a program that's going to help you get the most out of the least so that you feel like you're getting it done without having to feel like this is hard to do.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. This one I want to answer from training and nutritional therapist perspective. So this is a two-parter: training and preventing gestational diabetes. And the second part was safety while training with a big belly. So that latter one is more on the training front, but training and preventing gestational diabetes and how to train safely with a big old belly.
Yeah, we did touch on this on the nutritional side of things in the first pregnancy episode where we talked about the don'ts that Diane does, but we know that our muscle is a sponge for sugar. Okay, we know this. It increases our sensitivity to insulin, and so we need muscle. So we need to be training before conception. We need to be training throughout our pregnancies, and despite what doctors may tell you,
you're just gonna get it.
Over this. Yeah, this is something that you can control with your diet and lifestyle, and so we need to be looking to things in our diet and lifestyle that are supportive of balancing blood sugar and better utilizing that sugar.
And strength training is the best way to do. I put that in plans, like I'll asterisk it, put a little muscle emoji or a star, and people are like, well, what about this exercise? And I say, if you like those can be alongside. In addition to, but the main movement needs to be building and maintaining muscle.
The muscles.
Exactly. Yeah. So we talk about like how to prioritize protein or pair it with protein and carbs, and that applies to people non-pregnant or not. So women want you to hear this loud and clear: to strength train and fuel yourself with protein-rich diet going into pregnancy, and that will improve your odds of not having to deal with GD. I keep saying GD, like that GD.
That'd be a good episode title.
So how to train with a big old bell.
Yeah, so we touched on this slightly, but I wouldn't as far as like safety with a big belly, I mean, like, don't do contact sports, you don't need to be like doing Muay Thai and jousting. Like, what do people do?
Muay Thai, UFC, you maybe stop that.
Like I said, I personally don't recommend barbell Olympic lifting in pregnancy. I think, first of all, as an athlete, like, it messes with your bar path. It can lead to injury very quickly because you're not in optimal positions for that shoulder stability, and finding that space in the shoulders. But you can totally continue doing everything that you're doing outside of that with some props. So for example, if your belly is really big, perhaps we need to widen your stance a little bit on your deadlift, or switch to more of like a sumo deadlift. Or for your squats, we need to squat to a box as opposed to just squatting deep into the bottom of the hole and feeling like your belly's really getting in the way. So there's a lot that we can do to support that. And then also really learning to understand how to use your core and your deep core muscles to support the growth of that belly. So things are going to shift when that center of mass shifts, and we can learn a lot about how to support our body so it doesn't feel like my belly is ripping open and pulling me in this direction.
Ripping me open. We're so close to Halloween where I keep thinking of it, and I'm seeing the way she moves where I can see what I think are certain limbs. I'm like, whoa. Some days feel like she's gonna pop out of my night bell, because there's like morning belly, and then there's like, how sometimes it pops even more at night.
Just poke right through the belly button.
Yeah, like she's just gonna launch out of there. So I think we have time for two more. And one of them I know could be a separate episode, but we'll still touch on this one. The first one is, I was so tight and in pain my entire pregnancy. How to help through workouts.
Yes. Okay. Number one, did you see a pelvic floor physical therapist? And specifically, were they a wonderful, holistic, strength-focused pelvic floor physical therapist? Because that's essential. They can provide so much support in this season.
Yes.
And then outside of that, learning about your breath, learning about your pelvic floor, using specific variations of lifts, of breathing drills to help you to find space in the ribs, space in the pelvis, space in the pelvic floor. Those things can be really key, especially if you have like a real athletic background and like a type A tense achiever background. You might be shocked at how much tension you are holding in your body and how much you can benefit from utilizing breath work and positional strength training to learn to let go. Because that pelvic floor
holds
all your secrets.
And maybe they're wondering where to find a holistic, strength-focused pelvic floor PT. It does seem like, depending on where you live, that can be few and far between. We have linked her before. We will link one of our favorites who also is New York based, but she also sees virtual clients. We've both sent clients to her, so we'll link her in the show notes as well. But if not that, and you're not sure where to begin, STHH and a restorative, strength-focused program like Adina's is excellent for you to start.
Yeah, we'll teach you all about that pelvic floor. And it's, I mean, again, if you take nothing from this episode, like truly learning how to relax your pelvic floor and finding space in your pelvis, that's everything.
Yeah, and the labor prep is so nice.
Season.
So Adina's
So
got you
nice.
covered for preconception, pregnancy, and then her postpartum program, which I'm sure she'll tell us about before we close out. This next one, I know we touched on diastasis a little bit. I read this as doctor myths, but DR myths. I know those question boxes are short. DR myths. How to prevent DR from staying after baby.
Yes. So like we said, DR is a completely natural occurrence. It is the stretching of that connective tissue to make space for baby as belly grows. It is such a natural occurrence in all of pregnancies.
To everyone.
Yes, to everyone. At the end of pregnancy, you will have a DR. The question is, can we regain function after baby? That doesn't mean close the gap. Like connective tissue stretches. Your stomach looks different after baby's born. Like things look different. But can we regain function? Can we learn how to utilize our core? Can we learn how to manage pressure? And yes, absolutely you can. I don't want to get into all of it now. I think this is like a topic for a postpartum episode. We do talk a lot about it in the postpartum program. But yes, you can feel wonderful. Even if your baby was born 8 years ago and you feel like you never put the pieces back together, like it is always possible.
Right.
And you can feel great.
So I'm sure you've had questions about your postpartum program, like, oh, I had a baby 3 years ago, so like, can I still benefit from this program, right? And so that I'm hearing answer is yes.
Yes,
Cool.
yes, you can.
So we covered so much in this episode. We were like, this could be a two-parter, and maybe Adina has more questions she might answer on her story. I don't know, but we're trying to pack it in.
Before baby girl packs it out.
Yeah, episode so nice we did it twice because we know that these are popular questions. These are things that Adina hears often. So now if someone is pregnant, they're approaching that season, or maybe they are gonna eat that baby out like I am soon, and they're wondering what's next, how can people get in touch and work with you?
Yes. Okay, so if you have done SDHH in the past or any of our foundational programs, you can join us inside of the club. That's our monthly membership for alumni, and we have a specific programming track in there for prenatal. Like Diane mentioned, there's prenatal 1 for those early stages of pregnancy, and then prenatal 2. It's all, you have access to all of it, so we will guide you which programming group is appropriate for you at which stage and when to shift to that phase 2. And it is a wonderful version of our current program, where we just have you're following the same skeleton program as all the women in the club. We're all doing the same basic lift, but we just provide supports and modifications and things that are more supportive to growing belly or finding that space for labor. And then we also have specific like labor prep circuits in there to help you understand all those movements at the pelvis and the ribs and how to find that space and get ready for the big game. And if you have not worked with us before, I announced this on the first recording of this episode, and I was like, should I do it again?
A surprise.
I'm getting myself on the hook for coming soon. SCHH Prenatal. We have just started production on our self-paced prenatal program. And I'm saying, like, should I get myself on the hook for this? Because our projected date is like April 2025, but we obviously have a lot of work to do before that. There's a lot to film and program and all that stuff. So we will put a wait list in the show notes for this episode. And I want you to DM me if this is something that you have your eyes on, because it'll light a little fire under my tushy.
Yeah, so if you want to catch a baby and you're like, how do I train in a way that's supportive of my hormones for that? So would that be a prereq that they could do before doing the membership, the STHH Club?
Yeah, basically
Once
the
that's
way
out.
it's going to look ultimately is like STHH, STHH prenatal, and STHH postpartum will all be foundational programs that will grant you access to that monthly membership to continue training with us for life. So
Nice.
yes, we're really excited about it, but definitely nudge me if it's something you're like, I need that program now.
Let me in.
And if you have had a baby and you are like, I never really put the pieces back together, STHH postpartum, so good.
I'm excited.
The modules are juicy, supportive. There's a lot of practical how-tos, like how to poop after baby is born.
Like not just training.
Yeah, it's a lot of like lifestyle, pelvic floor, rehab, that kind of thing. There actually is like an 1.5-hour interview in there with Julia, our favorite strength-focused pelvic PT, where we asked her all the questions you guys wanted to know, returning to sex and orgasm postpartum. Like it's so good, this program. And then it's phased out also, so you can start the day after you have a baby, and there's supportive breathing that you can do in bed.
It's not training, but it's things you can do.
Yeah, to start to understand where your body's at and how to rebuild from some of those compensations that happened in pregnancy. And the reality is, like, yeah, we want you to rest a lot in the beginning, but like if you have a toddler, you have to learn how to lift in those early stages, and you have to learn how to get in and out of bed safely. So there's a lot of guidance in there. And then once you get to phase 4, after that like first 6 weeks, it's a full-on strength and power program that will put all those pieces back together so that you can feel really strong and capable and independent and like the mom you always dreamed of being. So
I love that.
It's so good.
Yeah, well, all the details will be in the show notes, as well as other episodes we've referenced, other referrals, all kinds of good stuff. So we did it.
And it's longer than the first time. Whoopsie. But we hope you enjoyed. And, after the election, especially if you're pregnant, now more than ever, just unclench that beehole.
Unclench and keep yourself hydrated with a mineral-rich mock cock, as we say.
All right, we love you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the GYST podcast. As always, your ratings and reviews mean the world to us.
If you enjoyed this episode, take a second, take a little screenshot, throw it up on your Instagram story, and tag us so we can thank you properly for sharing this show with other women that it might help.
See you next week. We love you. Bye.